Hello, welcome to the Binge Thinker. My name is Jameel Raymond. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here this afternoon, evening. My guest today is a good friend of mine, a podcaster, comedian, and journalist extraordinaire. Please welcome Mr. Fergus Neal.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Yes. Love that, Jimmy. So for people at home, a lot of the guys call me Jimmy thanks to a great incident that we had at Strawberry Fields a couple of years ago. Yeah, where I did pretty well, and then...
You were the best out of us.
Yeah, man, that's dropped off. Whilst I focused on other things, the comedy's definitely dropped off. I peaked in a lot of ways back then. And it's a shame, but that's what happens.
You were dressed as a wizard and you went on stage, and then these guys loved you. They loved you. And they started calling you Jimmy, even though your name's Jameel.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll take it. It's not the worst thing I've been called at a doof. And the fact that it was made with love is something that I will cherish forever. Yeah. And stuck. And
they had Southern Cross tattoos, so I'd be grateful, to be honest, that it wasn't an attack.
Yeah, yeah.
On you, Jimmy. They didn't even remember my name, so that's how non-plus my set was.
Well, you know, for most of that's third day, you didn't even remember yourself.
It was fun, yeah, but Jimmy will always stick with me.
Yeah. And you know what? That's fine. It's done with love, and there's plenty worse things to be called. So why not?
Definitely.
So today, like the conversation I want to have today is, you know, you're renowned or increasingly renowned for your increasing political awareness of the Australian political ecosystem. That's something that I've been quietly passionate about for some time, and I'm getting this growing frustration of the current political state within Australia. I think particularly now we need better leadership more than we ever have. And we're just not seeing that. There's, you know, the ranks of both sides of the political party becoming stale. They are towing the line. They're really subject to partisan politics. And there really isn't any commonality anymore, which I think is a real shame because it doesn't really offer us any real answers to the modern problems that we've got. I think that government is the slowest. It's got the most power, but is the slowest form of bureaucracy that exists. And we are seeing plenty of corporations, private corporations, outspeeding and outwitting the government, and some out of a lack of intelligence in the new economy, the new technology-based ecosystems we lived in. Some of it is just good old-fashioned who you knows and a lot of that grandfathered-in culture of poor politics. So I think it's just, I think it's a good way to explore where your angle is, what is driving you to explore these sorts of things. And I guess, you know, ponder where we think the next generation of politics is going to take us and where are the real heroes and where is the good news story that we're looking for post-COVID, post-recovery, because I think I just don't see it. Yeah. And it's increasingly frustrating that we have to create counterculture to create movement.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, even yesterday, so Josh Frydenberg, the Treasurer, his seat is in Kooyong, which is a Hawthorn, East Melbourne, you know, quite affluent suburb.
Yeah.
There's an independent running there now, and the Liberal Party are really concerned that she's going to beat the sitting Treasurer. Like, it's a genuine concern.
Yeah.
And they're calling this upcoming election the election of the independents. Essentially what that means is that people are turning away from the major political parties, for whatever reason. You know, some of that is definitely partially misinformation. Like, I think people will be surprised how many seats Craig Kelly wins, and that Craig Kelly, I think, will win his seat back. But that's just, you know, the phenomenon of the, you know, people turning away from parties and wanting to see independence and wanting to see kind of people speak their minds.
Yeah,
you know,
for better or for worse.
Craig Kelly's insane. Donald Trump was insane, but people like that they're speaking their minds even if they're fucking up.
Yeah.
You know, I think people don't like it when Josh Frydenberg says, hey, my electorate is concerned about climate change, but I'm not going to address that because my party and Barnaby Joyce aren't concerned about climate change. You know, so he's not representing his people, he's representing his party. Yeah. And so politics has moved from the populists to the political parties. A lot of people forget, you know, I remember this in first year uni where they're speaking about like the Athenian democratic system that we're based on. There were no parties, you know, it was based on individuals who would vote for their interests and vote for interests of their friends and people who they represented. And then parties came into politics, and essentially then politics stopped being about people and became for parties. And that's a phenomenon that I think people are turning against pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I think it's just because there is a whole aspect of personal interest, but it's all just become corporate interest. Now, your point around, you know, people speaking their minds, authenticity is permeating the conversation. Authenticity is popular in every aspect of media now.
Even if it's wrong. People would rather watch a far-right dude who's wrong, who honestly believes that, than someone on Channel 9 saying what Channel 9 thinks, saying what the board of Channel 9 thinks, saying what they're, there's all these bureaucratic functions. They want to see one dude on the street speaking his crazy shit.
Yeah, and
so do I. It's more interesting.
It is more interesting. And there's an interesting concept that sort of reminds me of that. So in selling, right?
Yeah.
There is conviction versus convincing.
Okay.
And if you've got conviction, you speak from a more authentic, more centered perspective, and as opposed to convincing someone of something. And that's what politics are. It's trying to be convincing. But you see the conviction in the way these people talk, right or wrong. And that something about that underlying power and emotion in the way they speak relates to us because they are talking about the frustration. Good or bad, they are addressing the subliminal frustrations that we encounter in our day-to-day lives and in the disbelief of the systems that we've got. They just generally don't have the right answer. They're usually the biggest mouths with the smallest brains. And that's what happens.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And so that's why I think it's getting so popular is because, for now I'm 31, so I've voted 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But I have, out of force, I've been politically involved since I was 11 because I was raised Muslim.
Yeah.
So we were a political weapon for a long time.
Totally.
So I've had to be switched on politically to understand why my people, so to speak, have been targeted and why we're the subject of all these things.
Yeah.
And then seeing how the populist aspect of Islamophobia and uniting against a common enemy has now permeated into different factions and branches of popular politics now because they're creating common enemies.
Yeah.
And that's how you usually unite people, is that you stop the infighting and you focus on an external enemy, and that's how you get things done.
Yeah.
Happened with communism in the Cold War, happened with Islamophobia, and then now, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever you look at it, China is now the Western enemy, but they're also the Western superpower. Yeah. So you can't show united front against the power because they have it.
Yeah.
We've seen over the last, economically, this is known as the Asian century. So they've known for the last 20 plus years that the transition of economic power was going to go from the West to the East.
Yeah.
Things like the BRIC nations, if you don't know, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China. Yeah. So they're the biggest 4
up and coming.
Yeah.
Predicted to have the biggest GDPs, bigger than America.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's actually generally based on not just economic, but agricultural and primary based industries.
Okay.
They control the majority of the resources that are underutilized. Yeah. And that's what we have. That's most of our economy is based on finite resources until we've transitioned to a fully digital ecosystem. But we still need to eat. You can't eat an NFT.
Well, that was the crazy thing is that during the pandemic, I think that a lot of people in Australia and America realized that the supply chain systems are so vulnerable when we don't make anything here. You know, like if these up and coming countries are making things that we need, and essentially there's almost like a Cold War going on, at the start of the pandemic, I remember all the masks were coming from China. And it was this weird situation where Australia were blaming China, but then needing to kind of be diplomatic because we needed, PPE gear from China. I think people realize it's crazy, the current system, in the sense that, you bring manufacturing back to Australia and you have good jobs for people, but then you also have a non-supply chain problem, which means that you don't have to rely on other countries supplying you with PPE gear when the next pandemic comes, Yeah.
But the thing is, logistics is also seen upon it's seen as a cost.
Yeah.
And it's not a value add in an economic chain.
Yeah.
I've understood that from my years of consulting and business about supply.
So do you think it's possible to bring manufacturing? I hear a lot of political parties say, let's bring manufacturing back to Australia.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible or not?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because
I know this election, that's a big policy point of both parties. They're like, we're going to bring manufacturing back to Australia. We're going to manufacture things in Australia. And people really get around that.
Yeah, but are they going to what are we going to manufacture? So they're not highly profitable things. The problem with the problem is that we blame the corporation for driving us down based on cost, but we're still the people that buy based on cost.
Yeah.
And we don't like to look at ourselves as the consumer and as the person that has bought into the price war as opposed to the value conversation that generally occurs when it comes to buying goods.
Yeah.
So is it in a post-pandemic economy where a lot of people are concerned about their back pockets?
Yeah.
Are people going to care about manufacturing coming back at a premium? I don't think so.
That's interesting, yeah.
I think there's a lot of emerging industries that could occur within Australia that we could take the lead on because we have got things like quality higher education, access to technologies. We're actually one of the most infrastructure-rich countries in the world.
Yeah.
But we just don't utilize it because there is not a lot of public investment into these industries that are ripe for transformation and updating.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of these people that are making these decisions are old.
Yeah.
And, have got size 64 font on their iPhone and can't convert a PDF.
Yeah.
Why would they care about the wonders of the fourth industrial revolution and
Yeah.
automation unless they see it drastically reduce their cost?
I think that there definitely are people who would want stuff made here. Like, I think if you said, hey, you can pay $5 more and this will be locally sourced. Like, I can't remember, someone was speaking about this. Could it even mean like Jocko or someone like that, where he has a manufacturing company in America?
Yeah.
And it's like, how much would people pay to have a phone made in America?
Yeah, was that
Morgan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I think people would pay a premium if it's like they were saying, like, hey, you don't need to have fucking suicide nets around the factories. You're making iPhones. Maybe it costs more money, but you're producing them around the corner in Braybrook or something, which was a big manufacturing hub of Australia.
Yeah. So I agree. There is definitely a market for premium services and products. Absolutely.
But overwhelmingly.
Is it? I think it depends if you're a have or a have not.
Yeah.
Right? Because pulling back blue collar work into manufacturing is great. But again, automation, by the time we bring those things back in and we generate plants, automation will take over.
Yeah.
Elon Musk said anything that is any human input is error.
Yeah.
Anything that's rinsable and repeatable as a process.
That guy's a robot though.
Yeah, but that's where we're going.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I know, like, speaking about the AI stuff, I think it's not enough of a human element inherently in AI because it's a robot, where I think it freaks people the fuck out.
Yeah.
Do you reckon like it'll actually be robots walking around? Like, we'll be in, say, this apartment and you have like a robot cleaner and there's a robot fucking, putting dog shit into a bowl and then chucking it into the bin. Like, do you reckon it'll get to that point?
I think it'll be a personal thing. It'll be a personal decision.
Right,
I think it will get there depending on what your attitude is towards it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't allow it personally.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a Jameel fucking a robot in 20 years.
Yeah, 20. Take a zero off, mate. Times are tough. No, I think it really depends on, the intelligence, because my big bet on intelligence is that it's going to wipe us out. Because
It's Sam Harris theory as well, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because we have designed technology to outdo us, to extend our capabilities beyond our own human potential. And we're doing that now.
So it's the next step of evolution will just be robots on Earth.
Very possibly. I think that there will have to be a deliberate premise to maintain organic life on Earth in the next 100 years.
Far out, I can't wait for that war.
Yeah, well, I'll probably be on the other side. I'll just be a brain in a jar.
With your robot wife.
Yeah. I mean, hey, she was cute. I went up the fence. But yeah, I think I think we need to embrace it. And I don't think there is any way for us to override the aspect of it, looking at us as an enemy at some point.
It's interesting because I think when your average voter hears stuff like that, it seems so far forward that they can't even comprehend it. Like, I feel like most Australians, their basic thing is like, our energy price is going to go down, our tax is going to go down. I don't care what else happens outside of that. It's almost like that. And I feel like that's why we were talking about this before, where I think the Liberal Party will often win elections because they have such basic policy where it's like, hey, we're not changing anything except we're going to lower your taxes. Whereas Labor comes in and says, here's 50 policy changes that's going to, alter your life. And people are like, well, I'm actually quite, a lot of Australians, one of the richest countries in the world, are quite comfortable. Yeah. So if you're comfortable and you see 40 policy points that are going to alter your life, and that's what Bill Shorten said last election, that he's going to alter your life. People are like, I don't want my life being altered.
Yeah.
I'm happy with how it is. Oh, this guy's offering no policy changes.
Yeah.
And he's just going to stick around and, be ScoMo and drop taxes by like a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll go for that because I'm happy with how it is.
Yeah, because we're politically apathetic.
Yeah.
we are
Shit has to get bad. I think during the last 5 months it has got bad in terms of ScoMo, and he's had a few crises. The vaccine was bad. The JobKeeper was bad. There are a few things that awaken people. I think like even the report into Parliament and like Brittany Higgins and the sexual assault and, you know, people already having those perceptions of politicians being kind of predators. There's all this stuff that's happened where people have kind of been like, oh, we've actually got to vote because there's bad shit happening within Parliament House.
Yeah, but have that conversation in Benalla. Right?
It's interesting.
We exist in a left bubble.
Yeah.
Right? And we have the presence of mind and the clarity and the abundance in our lives to consider these things as broader issues.
You don't reckon they're permeating? I reckon the vaccine stuff permeated to average people.
Yeah.
I had friends in Geelong who were so politically apathetic, or they were like, oh yeah, ScoMo fucked up the vaccines.
Yeah, because they
see that on the news as like a soundbite.
Well, they also see that I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And the way out is because of this guy.
Yeah.
A policy that he set that he couldn't even deliver on. So
and when has that happened in Australian history? Like, I think that's a big, big factor, which ScoMo is hoping people forget about, where people's lives were impacted directly by a politician.
Well, I mean, what do the news polls say now? How far is he really that far behind? I don't
Not
even
that
think
far
so.
behind, no.
And that's one of the things, that's what has been my frustration with politics in general, is that where the fuck was Albo the entire last 2 years? I did not see that guy in the news once.
Well, a lot of that is in virtue of the news, you know. It's like a lot of it is consolidated into one person, Rupert Murdoch, and he chooses who gets on the screen. I've heard a lot of people say, they've been, where is Albo? Where is Albo? He's been doing stuff. It just has, that's like an open mic comedian being like, they're being like, where is Chaz? Where is Chaz? And like, Chaz is an open mic down the road. He's doing it, but no one wants to film it. You know, no one wants to hear what he's got to say. Albo was around doing the gigs, doing the mics. No one wanted to do it, like to see him, because Will Anderson was down the road at the, you know.
I wouldn't. That's a harsh call on Will.
But but what I'm saying is that the media chooses who's in the lens and who's not in the lens, you know?
Yeah.
And people are like, where's Albert? It's not like he's at home twiddling his thumbs. Like, he's just not on the TV.
But I mean, like, that's a concern, because at least if I was being positive about this, I thought he was sitting back, just biding his time.
Stephen Bradbury.
Yeah, just waiting for this guy to compulsively fuck up over and over again. But
it's not a bad tactic.
No, it's not a bad tactic. It absolutely is a great tactic.
In this climate.
Yeah, but his policy, his return back, now that we are, 6-ish months away from an election, the only policy of significance that I've heard from him is that we're going to fix the NBN.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah.
You're not, it's
But I think he's
done.
doing that on purpose. So what he's doing is at the last election, as I said, the 40 policy points, they think in Labor internally that they got buried because they put too much policy forward.
Yeah.
So for instance, they're almost like, hey, we're the Liberal Party as well, but we're not fucking up. Nothing will change fundamentally about your life. Nothing will drastically change. They've matched taxes. So for instance, at the moment, the progressive taxation, the Liberal Party, it was going like that. The Liberal Party's made it go like that. So it's a flat line.
Yeah.
Labor matched it. They're like, we're matching whatever they do, we're matching it. So they can't say Labor's putting up taxes. They're matching everything. And they're like, we are the Liberal Party without ScoMo, without the FAPA, without the faux pas, the mess ups.
Because so the Liberals lean on two things: national security and economy.
Yeah, big time.
National security, they've already fucked up with our biggest trading partner.
Yeah.
And there's already a known issue with China. And economically, we need an economic plan more than ever before. I would love to know how much we have spent. I cannot wait for
They're in the biggest amount of debt ever.
Yeah, I'm not
Right
surprised.
now,
And that's why inflation's going to go, because they're going to print more money. That's happening in the US.
Yeah.
Is that economically, this is why one of the interesting things that I thought about since lockdown is that all of the assets have exploded in value over time. So cash gone up, savings went up, house prices went up, crypto is exploding, share prices have gone up because there's a high degree of financial literacy, and B, it's a bad time to be saving money because inflation's coming. Because what I've come to realize is that no one actually understands how all this money is being circulated. I mean, you look at the Panama Papers and they've got billions of billions that are just siphoned away with zero impact. So the idea is just to fill the market and let the private entity deal with the rest.
So people, you're saying, are prioritizing assets.
Yeah, 100%. That people are prioritizing assets and investing into assets. And I think that's going to be a key fuel point into the Great Resignation in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
I think the people that were in the know and that could save money and, were biding their time with what happened probably took some time to become financially literate. I think they're either going to, and they're probably invested into a booming market where they could see some action happening because crypto went up and house prices went up. Like house prices went up because people that had cash and couldn't go on their $50,000 cruise and die on a fucking the Princess Mary or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They put a deposit in another house.
Yeah.
And then the equity built in that time. Or you go into shares, you go into tech shares. It's pretty easy to invest in that because tech shares have gone up. Apple's gone up in like 40% in 12-ish months.
Yeah.
Microsoft is blowing up. Tesla's blown up. People know where to ride the waves. There's there's opportunity in all chaos. So I think that the people that the haves, they're going to take some time off and they've already made their money and then some, and it'll take the edge off the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
And then the other half of that will be people that are going to take a punt and have probably been sitting and dwelling for the last 2 years. And then just, going, you know what? I've been doing this shitty job for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm behind a keyboard, losing my life. I've lost prime time of my existence. I got to get the fuck out of here and do some shit.
The Great Resignation, you'd have a better picture of it than me, because when I first heard it, it's like a middle class, upper class thing. Like, for instance, if you're at fucking Hungry Jack's, right? You don't have any financial literacy. You're stuck.
Yeah.
You're completely stuck.
Yeah.
You can't just resign because then you're in the street.
Correct.
So the Great Resignation, it's people who have some viability in terms of their assets, in terms of their financial security, where they can say, hey, I've got this money in the bank. I can take a step back and start focusing on, say, I met a guy who was doing crypto. Like he was at a comedy gig. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I do crypto. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he does crypto from his house. And at the moment started off small. He's now making like $2,000 a week.
Yeah.
What's that? Like $104,000 a year? Like six-figure salary doing crypto.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. One of my close friends, I don't know if you've met Matt or not.
Yeah.
So same thing. He has survived this entire pandemic on his crypto money because he got it at Ethereum at like dollars.
Yeah.
And now it's like $5,500. And then he's lived comfortably. And there are plenty of people who have done that.
Yeah.
And, crypto is going to keep growing and keep growing. It is a early stage asset class which is going to explode. And so people that are smart enough to understand, who have a degree of literacy, like you said, are willing to take these risks because they know that the growth trajectory is there.
Yeah.
So yes, to answer your question, yes, the Great Resignation is a sacrifice of the now, and maybe they've been making a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of direction in their lives.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to spend more time with their family.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to take that long trip. Maybe they want to take that punt because they've been sacrificing their own meaning to make ends meet, but to what end?
Did you see that in your business world? Like when you're in the business world, did you see that, like people you worked with, you thought that they were sacrificing their personal lives for their career?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I was in deep corporate.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is soulless.
Really?
I loved working from home.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to have those stupid little, those little nods every day.
Yeah. So you think that slowly killed people, and when they got home, they went, holy shit, I'm free.
Yeah.
I'm free from the Monday morning meeting. I'm free from the eyebrows, like the passive aggression.
Yeah.
I'm free from all that.
Yeah. You're free from your work-life bullshit.
Yeah.
You take the mask off.
Yeah.
And that's what I found out through this pandemic, when I had a portfolio of customers, is that I openly embraced them having kids, in their screens, and, the kids be screaming, like, we are people.
Yeah.
And the pandemic forced us to take a layer of the mask off.
Totally. That's great.
And and I think we need to embrace that, and that will happen as the culture returns to the new normal. But I still think that people have gone, well, there's, the demand never goes away. I've always said this. The demand never goes away. You're going to have a rebound. We've seen an economic rebound straight away. We've seen people want to get out. There's, the gigs that, I've been running, I've talked about in the past, have just been blowing up. People are out there and about.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a degree of people that are still biding their time and have realized that the priorities in their life, aren't necessarily out there anymore. There's a lot more search within, or they want to escape the city in the doldrums. They're having the sea train change, the tree change.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people leaving Melbourne.
Yeah.
They said it's like 35,000 people at one point a month were leaving Melbourne 2020, 2021. Like, it's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah.
They're saying the size of Wodonga or something had left all up.
Yeah, but
a lot of people.
Doesn't surprise me. I think it's going to happen. I think you're going to see a shitload more nomads over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Particularly if, e-commerce keeps growing the way it does and people find a niche, or people find a way to do alternative forms of, off their side hustles blowing up.
Yeah.
And there are a lot more ways to have digital based and e-commerce based side hustles that make you enough income to get by.
And to have a life.
Absolutely. And to enable you to work to live, not the other way.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, part of the Great Resignation is that people are going, I'm encapsulated in this fluorescent, tie, just synthetic engagement. And it's,
it does suck your soul. Like, I know that's the cliche, people like corporate life sucks your soul.
It does.
But in the times I've been in, in an office context, there's something weird about it because it doesn't feel human.
No.
It feels very like devoid of
it's contrived.
Yeah, of human substance, and everyone's not themselves, and the lights are beaming your face, and there's screens on you, and there's something weird that happens to people. You can tell people have done it for like 40 years.
Yeah.
They're almost like they're hunched over. It's an interesting like byproduct of this kind of system that we're operating in.
Yeah, it's
depression higher,
Yeah, I think we've tried to synthesize productivity in an enclosed environment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we've come to realize, particularly with remote working, is work is what you do, not where you are.
Yeah.
So if you create a more positive environment where people feel like they can integrate their lives and become more of a whole person in their environment, they're more likely to become more productive, more involved, because there's more meaning in their lives because it provides the flexibility. Like, I ideally would never want to commute to an office ever again.
Yeah.
Because what have you been doing? Have you been, like, when you go on a train, it's being in a train in the commute is, I think, worse than being in the office.
Really?
Because people are it's like they're on standby mode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're connected into the devices.
Yeah.
They're sort of half tuning out.
Yeah.
They're just waiting to get to wherever they need to be.
Yeah. I wonder how many people on that morning train decide they're going to quit. There'd be a lot of people, right, who are on the morning train. Everybody's like, oh, God, we're going to work on the 8:10. And they just think, I'm out. Like, not even in the office, just on the train. Like, I can't do this every single day.
Yeah, heaps. They're saying up to 40%.
Holy shit.
Up to 40% of people. Because the reality is...
So the pandemic's almost been a blessing in disguise for a lot of people.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a different pod.
Yeah.
The Great Awakening.
Yeah.
There's people talk about the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. I think it's the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
I think that people, have woken up to the fact, I think it's it's almost what you wanted jail to be. Jail exists because we have this concept that there's a rehabilitative nature of being in the naughty corner and repenting and understanding what you've done.
Yeah.
Do the crime, do the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like this has inadvertently done that to a lot of people because they've had to physically disengage from toxic behaviors, toxic environments, and be enclosed in, hopefully, for the most part, except unless you've got domestic issues, a more enclosed, personalized space. Like, I've always said this, for me, I loved, I lived alone the entire pandemic. I loved it because I reconnected to myself because I'd spent my entire growing up around, not a great home environment, and then a personal environment where I wasn't necessarily my true self, and I couldn't feel comfortable to be my actual self. So recovering that for me has given me a different perspective on life, and it's completely changed who I am. And I think there is a big amount of that happening in various degrees, everywhere.
Yeah,
in different ways. But I think the problem with that is I don't think we'll see that really permeate and the effects of that occur until we actually get to a genuine point of COVID normal. When there's no more masks and people feel like, we're in it now. Yeah. Because you can't really change whilst you're suffering. Yeah. People are still wait and see. Yeah. Particularly in these, in the way, we're in this herd mentality aspect. The more numbers we have, the dumber we get. So we're waiting for someone else to lead us, generally.
The dictator.
Yeah. Dictator Dan, if you feel that way, to say it's okay now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because that point hasn't clicked over politically. But I said this to a few comedians that I reckon I've noticed at gigs there's been like a relief in people. I think maybe it was a month after the last lockdown or something, or 2 months. There was a time frame clicked in and people went from being uptight to kind of they've loosened up a bit. And I think because we're like, we're not going back into lockdown. Yeah. People are like, we're not going back.
Yeah, we're not going back.
Between lockdowns, everyone was like, when's the next one? So everyone was on edge. And I think we came out of the very last one, everyone was on edge. And now people settled in. It's like, okay, this is a bit normalcy now. Yeah. I'm feeling like I can look towards the next few months and make some plans.
Yeah. But I don't think, I think people are making plans now more than they have in their entire lives.
Yeah, very true.
Right? I think I think everyone's going to fuck off out of Melbourne for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't planned any gigs, because I reckon everyone's getting out.
I can see the gigs already. Dan was saying that.
Yeah.
He's like, the gigs are already plummeting because people are just getting out.
They're done. People are done.
Tuned out of 2021.
Yeah. And we don't necessarily see that because we're creatives.
Yeah.
And we don't exist in the 9-to-5 world that much. I did to an extent, and that's why I can tell that. I've actually caught up with people from my old work and customers and things like that, and they're all done.
They're out.
They're completely done.
They're looking forward to next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are leaving work early. They're already taking their extended leave.
Yeah.
There are changes that are going to happen. 2022 is going to be weird.
Really?
It's going to be weird, I think.
What's your biggest prediction for 2022? Like in terms of the work or... Because two elections in 1 year, that's going to be interesting to see how that, pans out.
Yeah.
But then I think, what you're talking about is more like the social aspects of society and what will happen to people socially, both with their families, both with their work, both in their living circumstances.
Yep. I think there'll be a massive bounce back international travel.
Yeah.
And travel in general.
Yeah.
I think there will be a massive skill gap in the low to mid corporate.
Yeah.
Because people are just going, why the fuck am I doing this?
Yeah.
Right? Who is passionate about accounting?
Yeah.
I follow this meme page, the Aussie Corporate.
Yeah.
And it's basically just people from Big Four, Big Four corporates, like the big, KPMG and all those sort of people. And all they do is just whinge about the sterile, shitty environment they're in, and that, because I'm looking for a job corporate again now, and there's jobs. Plenty of low to mid-tier jobs.
They got the worker shortage.
Yeah, because the skilled workers know that they've got enough competency to make a survivable living that it's worth more to them, to the well-being versus what the dollars bring in. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of people, including myself, who've taken a pay cut for a freedom raise.
Yeah, totally.
So I think we're going to see, I talk about this in another pod, is, what's going to boom over the next 12 to 18 months. I think we're going to see a massive normalization in mental health practices and the support around that. I think we're going to see a massive boost in startups and in the technology sector because people are going to take chances, and it's so much easier to start a business now than it ever has been. And I think the main thing is that experience-based activity, which is what we do in comedy, anything that can permeate feeling and goodwill, is going to be successful. I think anything that can make you feel good, and people are going to be recovering from what this was, and in strange, different, interesting ways. Like even as someone like myself, who I think has done pretty well with this pandemic, I still sense that I'm not there.
Okay.
I'm still.
What do you mean? There's something lingering that you haven't totally overcome from the pandemic experience?
I'm noticing the behaviors that. I'm just not bouncing back into certain behaviors, but in a positive way. Yeah. And I think, people are not looking at things that, how am I put this? Things that didn't serve people are starting to wake up to. Okay. And people going, oh yeah, there's people going out, but not as much as we thought.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And I think it's because people have become more comfortable being homebodies, or they don't really feel the pull.
Well, I think maybe we thought that everyone would get out and do ketamine and do every kind of drug, when really people are, I can go out when I want to go for dinner, but I'm actually quite comfortable at home. Yeah. How I was during lockdown, without that stress that if I do step out the door, there'll be police officers who, potentially could reprimand me. Yeah. Flip side, I have seen people in comedy gigs who I've talked to, and they've been like, I've never been to a comedy gig before, but I wanted to try something new and be in a new experience after lockdown.
Correct. People want to experience things. They want to feel things.
Comedy's different to a bar, I guess. You go to a comedy show, a comedy gig, it's different to just walking into a bar and having a drink. Yeah,
because there's a lot less social anxiety based around that too. I've never been, I'm too old for clubbing now, but I went out a couple of weeks, I've been out with Sam the last couple of weekends, and I'm just walking around like, why did I enjoy waiting 20 minutes for a drink? And sort of just sussing people out and getting people's way. And I'm not scared of COVID.
We went to Kindred, it was fun though.
Yeah, it's fun to get out and about, but even we felt too old for that place, let's be honest. But most of the people that were the kids there, they saw the excitement of going out.
Well, because probably also if you're 21, even like 18, 19, 20, maybe 21, you haven't really been out properly for like 2.5 years. Potentially you've missed a part of your youth.
Yeah.
That 17 to 20-year-old period, you've missed that.
Yeah, you have.
Totally, yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
But honestly, when you look back on it now, how much have you truly missed? Someone for now who's very focused on their mental and physical health.
Yeah, I've seen the meditation pillar.
Yeah. How much of that was just destructive tendencies that we thought we were pulled into?
It's interesting, isn't it?
Because we knew that was what was supposed to be done.
If the pandemic never happened, there'd be a lot of people just continuing negative behaviors they woke up to during the pandemic.
Absolutely. And that's what I think will change. Is that there are people are going, I don't need to go out and spend $200 on a weekend hitting the piss, having a kebab, feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Like, I think there is
that doesn't have to be your escape.
Correct.
Because a lot of people do that to escape a job they don't like.
Yeah.
Like, I'm working a job I don't like. I'm making whatever 6 figures. I'm making even, a couple K a week. And then they spend like 500, 1,000 on drugs on the weekend. And you're in this vicious cycle where you're just feeding your terrible life.
Yeah. 100%.
It's so weird.
And that's another thing is that this, naughty corner aspect is that hopefully, ideally, you would have had no choice but to look at yourself. And that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Is to really look at yourself and go, why am I doing this to myself?
I had some friends like that who they would go clubbing so much and they were mid-20s. They didn't really have any goals or ambitions. They would just go clubbing, kind of float where the crowd was. When the club shut, they had panic because they're like, I can't just go to the club and escape and be like, I'm here, I'm a club, I'm a person who goes to a club. I promote no, you're in a room by yourself and you realize you spent the last 5 years in a dark room with shit music playing.
Yeah.
And they were panicking. They've kind of done stuff now. They're like, I have to do something and I'll do clubbing every now and then. But I felt they would have been in this haze for 10 years of just going to Chapel Street and clubbing and not have woken up to it, whereas they're forced to wake up to it and be like, I'm literally just someone who moves their body a bit. Fucking, they would do it like Wednesday to Sunday night. They would be in Rev's Breakfast Sunday. It's crazy, and they work in hospital. It's weird.
Yeah, and that's, idle hands, the devil's plaything.
Yeah.
And is that this energy eventually shifts into something that's less destructive into something constructive. Because often those people who have to escape something, they usually have the energy to do something productive. They just don't have the purpose or the return on investment for whatever they choose to spend these time and energy on.
Yeah.
So hopefully people would have done that through this process to go, who am I? What do I really enjoy?
And I think when you have that purpose, like if you have a goal that you're heading towards, everything on that journey becomes meaningful anyway. Like if I have a goal that I want to achieve and I've got goals that I want to achieve, when I do, have a drink after a comedy gig, I know that I'm on my way to my goals and this isn't a deviation, it's on the way there.
Correct.
Whereas I think if you don't have a goal, going to get a drink is almost like going clubbing is almost like you're lost. There's a big difference in those two things. I'm always a big believer in intuition and the deep knower, that little seed of that knows better. That'll let you know.
Yeah. And you are trying to drown that thing out. And I've done it. I talk about addiction and the things that I've done in the past to ignore that feeling in my gut. And we've all got it. And that's what happens is you try and numb it, but instead of numbing it, people had to listen to it.
Yeah.
Or, maybe just dare to open the Pandora's box of what is that?
Yeah.
And that, I think, the more people that are nurturing that seed and that inner voice, that is pushing the Great Resignation.
Yeah, because I guess people were just pushing that down, like in the suit, just get down. I'm not leaving. I'm comfortable here. Just stay. And it keeps trying to come up, and often it'd come up in like maybe, ways that are not beneficial to you. It comes up like, I'm going to go dancing, or I'm going to go do this, or it's not something like I'm going to go create something. I'm going to go spend time with my family. It comes out in negative ways when really it's trying to send you a message of do something that'll make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah. And if, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to transmute that pain into something, naturally the ego will push that out externally as opposed to addressing it internally. And again, that's where the cycle of self-destructive behaviors come from. You're just trying to drink the pain away or, drown out that little piece of you that's going, why don't you try that hobby? Or try that something that you're just too scared.
Why do you think people don't pursue that though? Like, why do they not pursue that and they do, just do forms of, escapism in other outlets?
Fear of failure is number one.
But what is failure though? Is it just like failure of like, hey, it won't bring me a success in, like if someone says I want to be a comedian and they think, well, I'm scared of failure. Their idea of failure, like there's a few things, maybe not being good at it, which nobody is for a long time.
Yep.
Monetary success, which no one gets for a long time.
Yep.
So it's almost like, failure is just a part of that jump.
It is. But for the most part, you are now conditioned to failing. When you start out comedy, passion drives you to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then you hit the wall of constant failure. Yeah. And that's when you see the open micers drop off.
That's interesting. Yeah, you do see that.
Right? The fear of failure is extremely permanent and it permeates everyone in different ways. So that's the number one thing is that A, people are scared to fail. B, people think it's too big and it just seems insurmountable.
Yeah.
And then honestly, C, I think there's, lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem. That's certainly, one of the things that's held me back from producing content, which is what I'm doing now. I had to get over that within myself because, there is a degree of humiliation and I'm sure there's trauma or wounding associated with you trying something, putting yourself out there. Particularly in comedy, it's highly vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the things I say is, I don't care. Comedy's made me a much better salesperson when I worked in tech sales.
Yeah.
Because what's harder than, doing a pitch to a bunch of C-level executives?
Yeah.
Doing a dick joke to 40 people and getting nothing.
Yeah.
It has conditioned me to be in front of a person, in front of the public. I'm talking about something that's honest and creative and uniquely me. And that gets rejected over and over and over again.
It's brutal, yeah.
Yeah, and that sucks.
Toughens you up to the real world though, like you say. Like you're saying in a sales context, but even in any kind of social context, you're like, how bad can this go? And then you think of your worst comedy gig. Even like a moderately bad comedy gig would still be very traumatic to the average person.
Oh, yeah.
If you're doing just you in a room with 7 people who hate you, that's quite a traumatic experience to most people. I've seen people even at Mad Dog, where we both, started open mics ages ago, and you do a gig there, there'd be someone their first time, and sometimes they fucking run out the door. You never see them again because of how traumatizing that experience was.
Yeah.
So you've got to get traumatized, and you've got to keep getting traumatized for years and keep coming back, and then you have this semblance of, doing okay, and then, you have great gigs and bad gigs, and then it slowly comes closer where your average gig is better.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of trauma there.
The fool is a precursor to the master or something like that. I think it's a Jordan Peterson quote or something similar.
Yeah.
But you have to risk being a fool to become a master.
Yeah.
And people aren't willing to risk being a fool. One of the greatest masculine fears is actually humiliation.
Okay.
That's what they talk about in some domestic violence circles.
Okay.
In interpersonal relationships, a man's greatest fear is being humiliated by women. For women, it's being murdered.
Yeah, far out. So did that point to that men act in violence when they feel humiliated, or it's just that they're afraid of humiliation?
So they're afraid of humiliation because, particularly with women, because it's an echo of your genetics being rejected back in the monkey days.
Far out.
So that's what humiliation does to men.
Yeah.
So from a masculine perspective,
You see incels shoot up a school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how that frustration and that lack of acceptance transmutes into anger and into outrage because there's a lack of acceptance in the external world of who these individuals are.
Because when you think of violence, you always think of men. Like if you're walking home late at night, you don't think a woman's going to jump out and attack you. You envision a man.
Correct. And you have every right to, because that's exactly what happens. Is that, remember, what's that movie? It's a Pixar movie where they talk Inside Out.
Yeah.
And in the parental figures Inside Out, there was the mum and the dad.
Okay.
And the man defaulted to anger when it was worked up as an emotion.
Yeah.
And then the female emotion was sadness.
Okay.
So that's the polarity in the dynamic between men and women when they get emotionally charged. Like, yes, there's definitely aspects of both, women can become physically violent, and I've certainly seen that, and men just, break down and cry.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's our default because we are, men are more physically conditioned to violence because we're the more physical aspect of, the species, and women focus more on the social aspect of intersocializing. So, for example, women like to they will pull women down socially as opposed to physically. That's how they get dominance in their own hierarchies. So I think we're sort of divulging here, but yeah, that difference for men and women, and I was going to talk about this in a different podcast, actually. I think that comedy is inherently masculine. It's a masculine trait because you have to go up and command presence and talk and be very convincing. And that's a very masculine trait because you're the only one standing up and talking to the audience and to the crowd. So that's generally seen as we're leaders.
Well, I think men find it gratifying, but I think saying that is that there are a lot of female comedians who destroy men in that area. If you think about an open mic and someone who's killing it, like who's a female comedian, so you think that their traits are more masculine in nature when they're on stage? Yeah,
I think that they have to channel more masculine energy.
It's interesting. I wonder what that is. When someone's on stage, and because even if you think of a comedian like Noel Fielding, his doesn't really have a masculine presence. His is more like, alt comedy.
But he's absurd.
Yeah, but that's the type of comedy on stage, right?
Yeah, it is. But there is still the element of, when they talk about masculine and feminine polarity. Yeah. For men, they're more of the thinkers. Women are more of the feelers. So they're driven much more by emotion than logic. Okay. So the idea when you're up on stage, you are still trying to convince the minds of people and channeling emotion through logic or the disjuncture of logic, and that's comedy, as opposed to music, which is more feminine because that evokes emotionality quite naturally in what it does.
So the masculine and the feminine are kind of just denoting characteristics?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, you can still definitely have feminine women that absolutely kill in comedy. Yeah. But I think it's an inherently masculine thing. And, I think after a while, it's a masculine environment. Look at the dynamic. Look at the difference of male versus female comedians. Right? And even how many really feminine female comedians are there?
I think in America there's more. Yep. Even you look at those LA and New York comedy scenes and there's more at those higher levels. I remember hearing Ari Shaffir talk about this, is if you're a woman in comedy, starting off, you have to get through the fucking herds of weird open micers who would just come. There's so many reasons not to go to a comedy gig if you're a woman.
Oh, yeah.
So many reasons. Yeah. Firstly, you're going to be bad at comedy for a while, but you're bad at comedy in an environment with a dude who essentially has 3 fucking heads. He's about to read his manifesto on stage after you. Yeah. There's so many reasons not to do it, you know? And so if I see a woman at the top level, I think they've gone through more shit, and this sounds like I'm pandering, but I think they've gone through more shit than a man who's done it.
They absolutely have.
I've spoken to open mic comedians. I remember when I was first, say I was 21 or something, talking to people, I'm like, this person is so fucking weird. At comedy gigs, you're getting the weirdest people to the gig. And if you're a woman, going to a bar anyway, it's going to be bad sometimes.
It's intimidating regardless.
Compound that with having to go on stage in front of, imagine at a gig with its only comedians. Terrible.
Yeah, and you've got to have your backup.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I imagine, open mic comedy for women sometimes is equivalent of just walking around with keys in your fist in a car park.
Yeah.
That's from not literally, hopefully not. God, but, from that defensive aspect. And you've got to have your backup. You can't be timid. Right? You can
Same with men though. It's hard. If you're a man on stage, a lot of people have that where I think they want to Bill Burr it. They think comedy's got to be, you got to fucking put a statement out there and fucking back it up and fucking do it fair dinkum. There's not too many, maybe actually you see it a bit more, but when I started that kind of socially awkward, hey, I'm socially awkward, that kind of weird thing, that was kind of dying out, but it's still there. And that's there's a form of alt comedy that is like that. But, alt comedy then maybe under your, demarcation would be maybe more feminine, you think, than, say, straight up, bam, this is my point of view stand up.
Not necessarily. I just think it's the trait itself. I'm not trying to say that a certain type of comedy is more feminine.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just saying that the actual traits that you need to exuberate and, put out there are inherently masculine. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you are a masculine woman. Yeah. There are plenty of great comedians that can be nuanced about the way that they approach comedy, but I just think the act of it itself, the fact that you have to command presence and have to be convincing at scale, you know, who else does that?
I definitely know comedians who say like they love they feel powerless in their outside life, and then when they command an audience, they feel powerful.
You do, because it's a powerful thing.
Yes, yeah, it is.
That's why I love running gigs, is because you actually you are commanding power and presence.
Yeah.
You have control of an audience, and they want to be controlled. They want to be entertained.
Yeah, yeah.
They are willing. There is a submissive aspect,
And it's different to
being
music
there.
and stuff like that. Comedy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you might have different perspectives, but at the end, you all meet in a common place. When it comes to a punchline.
Yeah.
With music, you are just there to feel it, interpret it how you feel it. And a song will mean different things to different people, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
But for everyone to enjoy a joke, they all have to come to the same point at once. And that convincing and using that logic and playing with language, that is a more masculine thing. Because how's that difference to any sort of political leadership? Or business leadership, or leadership in general. It's a leadership trait.
I wonder though if that masculine and feminine trait, if it's kind of things are starting to transcend that. You know what I mean? Like it's like, hey, it doesn't have to necessarily be this is feminine, this is masculine. It's just like a trait that someone might have. Like I know people who would have those traits who aren't necessarily, of, I don't know, like a certain gender. You know what I mean?
But it's not about gender.
Yeah.
It's not
so feminine, masculine, it's like femininity tying to being a female and masculinity tying to being a man traditionally, but you're saying that doesn't necessarily have to be so.
No, it's not about gender.
Yeah.
It's about the traits when we look at the divine figures of what, masculine and feminine is.
Sure, yeah.
It's a bit, this is more spiritual woo-woo sort of stuff as opposed to the, very lefty define a gender perspective.
Yeah.
It's not so like I said, there are plenty of female comics that are feminine in their everyday life, look feminine, but the act of getting up on stage, talking to people, being convincing, I think is a masculine thing.
Yeah.
But, just as much as there are great female comedians, there are plenty of great female musicians. Yeah. And, traditionally we look at, for example, the Sirens. They're, those are musical women. That draw people in because they're using an inherently feminine trait, which is to command emotion through sound as opposed to commanding logic through sound. And that's the difference. And I think it's a cool thing to explore. It doesn't mean, I think that's what I've got to say about that is that it's a masculine thing, but it's not a gendered thing.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. It's interesting. How long have we been going for?
An hour.
An hour?
53. Just around. But maybe to go back to the whole political thing, is that actually, let's probably talk about you. How did you get switched on politically? Yeah,
I think it happened throughout uni, but I think when I started making videos politically, obviously inspired by Friendly Jordies, I really liked what he was doing. And then also, I noticed when I was making TikToks, we were doing well. Say TikTok, we get like 400,000 or 500,000 about Australian politics. Unusual, right? When that's happening, that shows that there is a gap in the media on Oz politics.
Yeah.
The fact that someone, in their bedroom can make a video that goes viral about an Australian political issue and that, Channel 9 is getting, on their political takes, not that many views.
They would love to get 600,000 viewers on a political show they've got now.
And it epitomizes the gap, and you're seeing a lot of that happening with Friendly Jordies' popularity now. It just keeps going up. I know Lewis Spears is he's starting to do more political takes on YouTube and that kind of thing. I think people are realizing that there's such a gap there in voices because there's no authenticity in mainstream Australian media culture.
Correct.
The only reason RVMN is able to flourish is because the disenfranchised people that look up to him are not being given another viable option from someone in the mainstream media.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I believe. I think that if someone was viable in the mainstream media and saying, hey, yes, there are people who are far right protesting, but there are also people protesting who have lost their businesses. There are also people protesting who are in, domestic situations where lockdown, they can't do it. They can't do it and they're protesting and the mainstream media is saying, well, if you protest, you're a piece of shit. Yeah. And there's one person saying, hey, you're not a piece of shit, So of course they're going to fucking gravitate towards that person.
Yeah.
So I think when people how does someone become, you know, I don't even think the word radicalize is different, but just they like someone, they become involved in someone. I think it happens slowly. Someone says one thing that they gravitate towards, and then they just start believing everything they say. You know, it's like a step ladder. Oh, I believe that. Yeah, I'm not a piece of shit because I, you know, protest lockdown. Oh, there's that. Holy shit. You know, I'm storming the Capitol. Like, I think it happens slowly like that.
That's it. It's just there is no authentic voices. The disenfranchising, I 100% agree with, is that there is no meeting in the middle anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm left-leaning, I vote for the Greens, but even I'm getting sick of the Greens.
Yeah.
Because it's not helping. The fact that we're pulling further and further away is creating, you know, again, just it's going the long way around. It's the same, two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And everyone's reasonable. Everyone is in the middle. And no one is being reasonable and being logical about this.
Great example recently is that Labor just put forward its emissions agreement, what it wants to target. Right, it wasn't insane, like the target. It was, you know, it was better than ScoMo's, but it wasn't what the Greens would want it.
Yeah.
So the Greens go full frontal attack on Albo, like leveling at him to a point where it's like, this is like reminiscent of the last election, where essentially the Greens have been sitting at 10% for so long.
Yeah.
So long to the point where I don't understand how they're not thinking, why aren't we growing?
Yeah.
Like, why are we not getting more people in? Why are we alienating more people than ever? Why are more people leaving us and going to other independents? And we're attacking Labor. It's going to happen where the Greens will attack Labor to a point where if Labor loses the next election, it'll be because of independents and Greens. ScoMo might get in on preferences, and the Greens are in political, you know, obscurity for the next 10 years again. And it's like, what are you doing?
Correct.
It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Just let Albo get into power and then start thinking about some political changes.
Yeah.
I'm doing this bit on stage at the moment where like it's still in its new, it's in the early incarnations, but I'm like, as I said earlier, most Australians, lower taxes, lower energy bills. I don't give a fuck if the turtles are gender fluid. Get into power by making the taxes lower, energy bills, and then Damo will turn up at the zoo one day and it'll be like, why are the turtles fucking gender fluid? You know, you do that secretly and then you say, hey, the turtles are gender fluid because the same party that did that lowered your taxes. Guaranteed Damo will be like, wow, maybe the turtles should be gender fluid. You know, he doesn't give a fuck about the turtles. He cares that his taxes are lower and he cares what party did that.
Yeah, 100%. We are not focusing on the issues that actually lead to people's survival.
100%.
That's, you know, I think about this a lot, is like, you know, we talk about all these, you know, with climate change and being environmental and things like that. Asia is one of the biggest polluters. The Yangtze River accounts for like 10% of all water waste in the world. And like, you know, plastic use in Southeast Asia is immense. Yeah. And I don't blame them, because they don't have anything to survive on.
Yeah.
Why would someone in Thailand give a fuck about the polar ice caps melting when they can't even get fresh water unless they buy it from Nestle and it's full of fucking BPA?
Yeah, and that's the problem. That's not to say that environmentalism isn't an important issue. It is.
Correct.
But if you're running on a platform where you're saying we are going to be so pro-environmental that it's going to impact your economic certainty, people just don't vote.
100%.
You've got to guarantee economic certainty.
What about the carbon tax?
Exactly. You've got to guarantee economic certainty. And then when you give people that, they trust you, then you start, hey, we're doing this. I know Greta Thunberg will be like, you stole my future, give it back. I get that. Like, I get that as well. But it's too radical right now.
Correct.
Environmentalism, it's important, but it's going to be slower if you don't go slow. Does that make sense?
Yes, because you're nagging.
It's going to take longer if you be like, let's just bomb everything and just open windmills on our houses. It's not going to happen like that. You're going to say that, conservatives will get in, and eventually you'll have a fucking solar panel in 10 years' time, you know? Solar panels are on everyone's houses now. Like, a lot of people have solar panels when that was quite a fringe idea like 15 years ago that we'd all have solar panels on our houses.
Yeah, but you know why? It's because people can sell power back to the grid and reduce their energy
economic
costs.
Benefit.
Economic
you
benefit.
You got to sell people. People care about money.
Correct.
You got to sell them the economic benefit as well.
Yes, all the problems that we talk about, these first world problems, are the perspective of people that are thriving, not surviving.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this on your pod, but yeah, you know, the silent majority, I think, in political Australia now is migrant families.
Yeah.
And they generally come from conservative backgrounds.
Yeah.
And they bring the conservative cultures and they mistrust the government, because if they cared about the government or trust it in the first place, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So the less hands they can have on my money and my freedom, the better. And that's where the liberals dominate.
Yeah.
And that's why you see, you know, predominantly you're seeing more and more, in particular, Chinese representatives. And they're not, there's one or two in Labor, but they're predominantly in the Liberal Party, particularly in the fringe and outer suburbs of Melbourne and Sydney, because they understand the demographic.
Yeah.
And all they need to do is relate and go, less taxes, we don't care about the gays.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And it's interesting because you say that, because I think it's a sad reality that in Australia, I think there's a lot of people who, if you said, hey, we're going to get in, we're going to tax you more, we're going to give that money to poor people, a lot of Australians are sad, but they go, nah, I don't care. I don't want my taxes being given, you know? And that's a redistribution problem. Like, you should have taxes, should be taxation. You should not have much debt. But there is a way to do it where you distribute the money so that you add to social services without destroying everything. And that's possible. And Labor has done that.
Yeah.
But the narrative is that Labor doesn't do that. And that's once that changes, everything will change.
Yeah, but that came from Reaganism and, you know, being neoliberal light and the idea of, you know, drip down fucking economics, which
hasn't worked.
It's bullshit. Nothing grows in the sky. That's a terrible analogy. What grows up here? Nothing. All of your growth comes from the grassroots. All of the economic growth... Geez, hang on. I guess that'll be fine. All of the economic growth comes from new industry and new growth. And that comes generally from the ground level up. That's why I think startups are going to be an immense driver of economic growth because they are not chained to... the technological limitations of legacy systems. And then also generally the people that are starting these things up are optimistic and know how they're going to bring things forward with the new tools that are available to them through the abundance of technology and its possibility. And that's why I think there's this new way forward. That's why I'm concerned. That's why I think about the Great Awakening, because I think that we have, you know, COVID has flattened the economy in a strange way, and it's, you know, just burnt away a significant part of the culture and the way we were doing things in negative space. But just like in a bushfire, trees come back and they become stronger. And that's what I think is going to happen. And I just don't think that the majority of people necessarily understand how that's going to affect them in their lives. And the policies that we are shaping now are still even behind. In the way that people can, you know, understand how to regulate cryptocurrency and, you know, things like just the way that, I guess, where was I going to go with this? Just the way that regulation doesn't understand how the internet works.
Sounds like, you're saying I'd agree that both Labor and Liberal are not representative of many people.
Correct.
Both alienate a lot of people.
Yeah, because, I mean... we know that Liberals are being absolutely hounded by their far-right constituency in the Nationals and whatever else is going on.
The paralysis of the party, essentially.
Correct, and that's what happened to Turnbull.
Turnbull
had all these, you know, all these nice wishes to have and wanted to be...
and people liked him, he was popular.
Exactly right, but he was held to ransom by the extremist fringe that was absolutely tearing for the party.
It's amazing that it's like 2 seats in Queensland that changes the whole country as well.
It's
very bizarre.
It's insane. And then with Labor... they are this do nothing approach, and even they're losing their base because, I mean, union uptake, they survive as a party of the people. And people are upwardly mobile. So the blue collar pride has disappeared.
Totally.
So
they're getting the Liberals are now getting the ambitious Australians who want to go from lower middle class to upper middle class.
Yes, and most of those people are migrants. Because the people that are doing well economically that were from generations of the Labor Party are going to the Greens. But even the Greens are getting too annoying and too loud. Like, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with being a billionaire. I think that they understand not just money, but wealth and value. And the significant reason why people, you know, are that wealthy is because they've found a way to deliver value to the market in a way that other people haven't.
If you become a billionaire, you're smart. You've found a way to make money off a world. Is trying to tax you and trying to take money off you, and there's so many obstacles. Elon Musk is a genius.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're a billionaire, you're probably a genius in some capacity.
Absolutely you are. And that's the thing, is that we have found, you know, I think now particularly, we can't trust the government to distribute our wealth effectively. We have seen that time and time again.
That's interesting. I think that as well. I think people are starting to have that inclination where they don't like how money's being spent.
Absolutely not. I mean, yes, we could use more social services, but we're not using them on social services. We privatize a lot of our infrastructure. We've sold our natural resources for a pittance. And somehow, like, there's this hypocrisy that exists within the Liberal Party because, they're trying to make you pay your taxes and robo-debts, but they are actively distributing the wealth into private hands, not into the public wallet, into public interest.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the fathers of neoliberalism, and you look at the Afghan War.
Yeah.
The majority of that $3 trillion was sent to private contractors. Because why?
Guns dealers.
Yeah. Military contractors.
Yeah.
Because they are not subject to the regulation of a government. And that's why we sell all these resources out, because the laws and the bureaucracy inside the four walls of any government is the slowest.
Yeah.
I mean, I've sold contracts to private organizations versus a government organization.
Yeah.
And it takes 4 times the amount of paperwork and takes 4 times the amount of bureaucracy just to get this done.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem, I think, that is that, we're expected... Like, everyone knows the loopholes. Everyone knows the tax code loopholes. They exist in them. We've seen rorts. That's why Gladys is gone. Yeah. We've seen time and time again people get done politically for these loopholes. Yeah. But they do nothing about it. And somehow, and we all know it. We all see it. And, if once, as I generate wealth, I'm going to use those loopholes, and it's called tax planning, right? Yeah. Kerry Packer was, like, vocal about the way that he minimizes his tax. Yeah. And so is everyone that is wealthy now, is they go, it's actually an incentive game. Yeah. The taxation, if you use it properly. It's not supposed to be distributed into services. It's an incentive game for private industry to generate wealth off the public wallet. Yeah, yeah. And we all know that game, and we aspire to it, and that's why we love the lower taxes. Yeah. Because it hits our bottom dollar, it hits our back pocket at the cost of other people. But let's be really, really brutally honest. How much do we genuinely care about other people?
I think that my mindset is I'm happy to pay taxes if it's going to like a social net. Like, I think that I'm someone who maybe values institutions more than people who I've talked to. I think that, you need a good public education. You need a good social services. Centrelink and stuff like that is really important. Pension is important. Police services are important. I think institutions are being corporatized, privatized. They're being, mitigated and just completely defunded. And I think that affects a lot of people rising up. Yeah. I think that really affects a lot of people trying to get up to the next level, tax bracket, whatever. And I think I don't know if the privatization, even if you look at energy, right? So when energy in Victoria was just owned by the one energy company, the price was fine, right? But the government was in debt, so they wanted to make money. So they sold it. Energy prices went nuts. So they had a tier one energy group, the 3 energy companies, Energy, AGL, I think Energy Australia and Origin or something like that, the 3. Then the prices kept going up. They opened a second tier. It's like 50 other companies. Price went up. Opened a third tier. Now energy prices are the highest they've ever been. And it happened originally because the government privatized it, you know? Even like talking to my dad's friends, a lot of people did their apprenticeships and stuff within that company, within that publicly owned, government energy company. You do your Sparky apprenticeship, you do your plumbing apprenticeship. Now we're relying on like private people and apprentices to go around and through nepotism find their own apprenticeship. When you used to just be able to go, hey, this is a government company. Can I start here and then maybe start my own company? Yeah. Now it's like, hey, I know a guy. Yeah. That fucks a lot of people who don't have connections. Yeah. The who you know as opposed to the what you knows. Yeah. I mean, it happened with telecommunications as well, which is my background. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Right? It privatized the price. Was that a good thing though when Telstra went private? Look, there was no way that the government would be able. I mean, it was before my time. It was in '96. I was 6. Yeah. But there is no way that the government could maintain the infrastructure or, even have a firm grip on what the infrastructure could mean to Australia and how it develops it now. That's interesting. Yeah. So it kind of needed to go private. Oh yeah. To expand. Yeah. Absolutely. But is water's not private? Is it Melbourne Water? That's government owned. No, so they're all government owned. Because I used to look after Goulburn Valley Water, which is one of the largest water distributors. Catchments or whatever. Yeah, catchment authorities in Victoria. Yeah. So they are all subsidised. But I mean, even water's being sold, as we've seen in New South Wales. Yeah, yeah. Right? So any primary industry, any resources at risk of being sold off. Yeah. Like, it's wildly rumoured that Telstra will buy the NBN, and I believe that'll happen as well. Yep. Fuck. Because, I mean... It's so slow. It's rolled out so slowly.
It's been rolled out poorly.
Yeah.
The infrastructure mix is terrible.
Yeah.
And they're not making any money.
Yeah.
They've had massive losses.
Yeah.
The cost to the retailer, the cost to the end user has negligibly changed.
Yeah.
The cost to serve as a retailer, so Telstra went from a wholesaler to a retailer, their margins rapidly decreased.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the realm of 40%.
Yeah.
So if you, like, for example, if they sell you an NBN connection and they fuck it up twice, they've already lost money in the entire contract.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is the government is going to be looking at this massive pile of debt that they've got.
Yeah.
And they've already privatized the telecommunications once.
Yeah.
Why would they not do it again?
So again, they'll just be like, well, we're going to lose money. Let's just sell it to Telstra for like a reasonable price.
Yeah, there'll be an ACCC aspect to it. You know, there's regulation. But so Telstra has actually spun itself into 3 separate organizations over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
To prepare itself for optionality in the future
Okay.
to buy the NBN back
Far
and potentially
out.
spin out the InfraCo under a different legal anomaly or something like that. I don't know the entire details. It's one of the reasons why I left Telstra.
Yeah.
Is because I could see what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But I think there's a strong chance that, there's going to be plenty more assets that are privatized. How much more resources can be privatized? That's already all gone.
Yeah.
So how's the government going to make money if they're reducing taxes?
Well, Scandinavia owns all their natural resources.
And we should have done the same thing.
Well, Australia, it's nearly all foreign owned.
Yeah.
So all the money just goes back overseas.
Yeah. And then then they provide massive tax and excise credits.
Yeah. While lobbying government.
Yeah.
It's crazy, yeah.
And that's why I wonder, Jackie Lambie had a good point, and this is what's crazy about this political spectrum, is that I'm agreeing more and more with Jackie Lambie.
Yeah.
Where is Greg Hunt going to go next? Because if he ends up at Pfizer, or if he ends up as a lobbyist,
It's interesting, yeah.
as post-career in one of these major health companies, that's got to be declared a public
I didn't see, did
interest.
Jackie Lambie say that? She said, where's he going to go next?
Well, he just said, where are these people going to leave?
Yeah,
you served your
watch
country,
where they
great,
go.
but where are they going next?
Yeah, that's great. Because that's indicative of who was talking to them when they were in office.
Yeah, 100%. You got this cushy job.
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing on the board of directors? All you're doing is leveraging political levers.
I wonder if Christian Porter ever exists in like a lobbying capacity.
Probably. He'll find something.
His reputation's been so defamed though.
So what? Who gave him $1 million?
True, yeah. There's corporate backing there, isn't there? Who has $1 million to just give to someone for a court case?
I don't think it's corporate backing. It's political backing.
Yeah.
I would.
But it has the backing of the money probably, you reckon it came from within a political class or like a corporate class?
I think it came from a political class, maybe even religious class.
Yeah.
Right? I think, for all the George Soroses there are in the world, there is, this hyper-conservative super PAC that we see like in the US.
Yeah.
Right? That exists in Australia too.
Yeah.
And that's probably backed by some sort of religious fundamentalism, right or wrong.
Mm.
And, they're just going to, just like we talked about before, they're just going to back, I'll talk about this with Sam actually. There's no such thing as being cancelled anymore because we've broken into tribes and we're so split up in different cultural factions that if you're rejected here, you'll be accepted there by default. Right? And that's what's
interesting.
Yeah. The collective consciousness is so highly fragmentalized now that it's really just, and we're seeing on TikTok, find your niche.
Yeah.
Find your niche.
Stay within it.
Correct. Because
don't get out of it.
Because globalization has provided so much of a significant audience, and with that audience comes attention and resources and money that you can survive playing to your crowd and sitting in that segment.
Comedians do that as well. They find the crowd, they don't leave it. They're like, why would I leave? I'm comfortable here. People like me.
Yeah, but again, that becomes a question of the love of the art versus the love of the dollar.
Yeah, yeah. I love seeing comedians who have audiences do audiences that aren't theirs, not because they necessarily do bad, but because I can see it's a challenge, and I enjoy watching that.
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing that. It's more interesting to me than watching, someone crush in front of 200 fans.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like when you hear, back in the day, you hear Bill Burr doing black rooms.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Where you're going to grow as well.
Yeah, that's all where the pain comes from. But if you can figure it out there, then you can figure it out anywhere. Yeah. That's why I say this about Melbourne comedy. If you can do a heavy joke or a not so PC joke and it does well in Melbourne, it'll crush in the rest of the country.
Totally.
Yeah. Once you do that, once you do a gig, it might not do. If it does well in Brunswick, it'll kill in Werribee. and it's going to crush into Toowoomba.
Yeah.
Because again, there is this bubble, and that's what we found. You know, we're not respecting each other's differences like we used to.
Yeah.
You know, like we were talking about before, like the no vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 67-33, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I saw a lot of people that said no. Right? And instead of antagonizing them, if you understood them, I think you would have said that would have been 80-20 if it didn't become such a polarizing discussion.
Well, that thing should have just gone. It was weird that it went to a plebiscite to the people. Like now, it's such a non-issue now that it costs so much money to make it a plebiscite when like their MPs are representational.
But that was Turnbull with his nuts to the fucking grindstone by the political powers that be.
Yeah.
That he had to spend $100 million of public money.
He needed public backing.
Yeah, to appease it.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't even get his spine in.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah. Right, that's wild, isn't it? That politicians can't actually do what they're in politics to do. That has to go back to the people and everyone has to do a vote.
Well, I mean, that's what they get paid to do, but they can't even do it within their own party because the people inside that party will not allow it because they're so agenda-driven. And, coming full circle, it's really about what serves their needs as opposed to the needs of the people and what they think they're supposed to represent.
I think that's a good way to end it.
It is. I can see your ears getting sore. So probably when you've had the cans on too long. But Fergus, thank you very much for the conversation.
Thanks for having me on, man. That was great.
It was a lot of fun.
I enjoyed it.
Where can the people find you?
Instagram at FergieFerg1, Twitter, the Ferg Neal, and then look up my YouTube. Come say hi.
Yeah, great. You probably know me, but if you don't, you can find me on @JRaymond on Instagram. I also run Aussie Comedy Network. As you can see here, Fergus is having a few of his podcasts produced through me as well. Come check that out on @Aussie Comedy Network on Instagram and TikTok. Coming to Facebook as well. I'm going to be doing a full launch of that in February and March. If you've been part of the early release, thank you very much. See some big things in early 2022. I'm very excited. Also, if you want to come see a show, Footscray Comedy Club, doing some great shows in the Inner West next year as well. Look that up on Instagram. Besides that, thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.